Hello, I'm Dr. Harold Wong. Today I'm going to cover why bonds are going to be the next big crash. If you look at the world of conventional financial planning, for decades they've said stocks may be risky, but bonds are safe. Well, I disagree, and here's why. It's true that over the last 30 years, if we look at the 30 years before 2012, there's an article that came out January 2012 in the USA Today, and it said that over that 30-year period, the total return from bonds has exceeded stocks. Well, right there we find another rule of conventional financial planning that was proven incorrect. Because if you work with stockbrokers or typical financial advisors, for decades they've said you can make 10% per year in the stock market if you hang in for the long run. With bonds, you only make half as much. Hasn't been true. And let me explain why. It all comes down to the bond teeter-totter approach. Basically, here's the way it works. Is interest rates drop, the value of bonds go up. And that's what's happened over the last 30 years. If you remember 30 years ago, you could make 10, 12, 14, even 16% of the money market fund. In 1980 and 81, the prime rate was 21% interest. First mortgages were 18% if you could even get it. So over the last 30 years, interest rates have dropped. But right now we are at historical lows. We've never had interest rates this low. Not for your generation, your parents' generation, your grandparents' generation. You've never been able to get a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage around 3 to 3.5% interest, and a 15-year fixed-rate mortgage for under 3%. We've just never ever seen this, and here's why interest rates are so low. After the 2008 stock market crash and the housing bubble that burst starting in 2006, 2007, 2008, and the continuing real estate recession, and our Great Recession with big unemployment and underemployment, the Federal Reserve has taken policies to drive short-term interest rates to virtually zero. A one-year CD pays 0.2% if you check Bankrate.com. A 5-year CD pays only 1%. A 10-year Treasury bond now pays about 1.45%. We've never seen rates this low. Well, here's what's going to happen. Can we agree that interest rates really can't get much lower than where they are? So they have only one place to go, and that's up. And when interest rates go up, the value of your bond portfolio goes down. And let me explain this in terms that are easy to understand. Let's suppose the little old lady bought a $1,000 10-year Treasury bond, and to make the math easy, let's suppose she got 2% interest. So 2% interest on $1,000 is $20 a year of income. And she brags about that to her neighbor. Oh, I'm going to spend that $20 of annual income. Well, don't go to too expensive a restaurant and you'll blow it all in one lunch. Her neighbor says, I want to get that $20 a year of interest, and it's a year later. But guess what? Our foreign creditors, who do you think we owe trillions of dollars of our federal debt to? Well, China just surpassed Japan last year to be our #1 creditor, and Japan is our #2 creditor. And we owe money to lots of other foreign governments as well. So let's suppose they say, well, you're going to have inflation, America, because over the last 3-4 years, you're spending up to twice as much in spending on the federal level as you're taking in income. So we know inflation is going to occur, so we're going to demand 4% interest, not 2%, on our Treasury bonds. Otherwise, we're not going to renew them, and then you're going to be in a world of hurt. So a year later, the interest rate market is 4%, and her neighbor wants that same $20 of interest income. So how much is she going to invest? She's only going to invest $500, because $500 times 4% is that same $20 of annual income. So what happened to the little old lady that invested $1,000 a year ago? What if she is to sell that bond because it's in an IRA, and every year she's forced to take a required minimum distribution? She paid $1,000 for it, a year ago. Today it's only worth $500, so she lost half of her principal in that investment. That's terrible. Well, 4% interest rates are considered low by recent history over the last few decades. What if interest rates go up to 6%? So again, interest rates triple from 2% to 6%. And now the value of that little old lady's $1,000 bond, that $1,000 10-year Treasury bond, is now worth one-third, or $333. What if we have hyperinflation, like in the end of the 70s, and now interest rates go to 18%? So now, if interest rates go up ninefold from 2%, interest rates go to 18%, a ninefold increase, and now the theoretical value of her Treasury bond is now 1/9 or $111. Hey, losing 89% of your money is like getting wiped out. Now, there are people who say, but she's not going to lose any principal if she can hold it till the 10-year maturity. But she doesn't just have 10-year Treasury bonds. She may have 20 or 30-year Treasury bonds. She may have corporate securities, corporate bonds that last 20 or 25 years. And if she's 70 years old, what do you think the likelihood is that she'll be around 20, 25, 30 years later and alive to be able to cash in that bond and get her full principal back? So again, that's why I'm warning people. Bonds are going to be the next big crash. If you don't believe me, believe Bill Gross. He's known as the Bond King, co-founder of PIMCO, the largest bond fund in the world, managing over $1 trillion of assets. Well, in May and June of 2011, he stunned the whole financial world by saying he's not going to hold any treasuries. In fact, he's shorting them, which means he's betting the value is going to go down. So if you don't believe me, look at what Bill Gross, the Bond King, has to say. We both agree. We're not sure exactly when, but at some point interest rates will go up because inflation will go up, and that's why bonds are going to be the next big crash. For more information and articles about how you can safely protect your life savings, go to drwonginvestorguide.com.